2005, Amanda Leariel Overstreet disappeared without a trace. She was just 16 years old, and no one ever reported her missing. For years, her whereabouts remained a mystery, until now. Recently, in the quiet town of Grand Junction, Colorado, a chilling discovery was made inside an old home. The new owners, while cleaning out their property, stumbled upon something unimaginable. In the freezer, they found human remains, Amanda's head and forearms, the tragic remains of a young girl who had seemingly vanished into thin air. Authorities are now investigating this as a homicide, but many questions remain unanswered. Why wasn't Amanda ever reported missing? And how did her remains end up in that freezer? Her stepfather, the previous owner of the home, passed away in 2021. Could he have been hiding this terrible secret all along? The investigation continues, but for Amanda Leariel Overstreet, after all these years, the truth is slowly coming to light. Sometimes, silence hides the darkest secrets. That's all from me. Over to studio.
Ever get that weird feeling, when you walk into a new place and it's like all the history there?
Oh yeah, you mean like you can almost feel the presence of the past?
Yeah, exactly. And well, we're about to get into a case where that hidden history took a pretty dark turn. We're talking Grand Junction, Colorado,
Yeah.
a house that was, well, it was hiding a decades-old secret.
And not just hidden, right? It was like locked away in time.
Totally. So, okay, try to imagine this. It's January 2024, quiet neighborhood.
But
This couple, they're moving into what they think is their dream home.
sure, starting fresh, new beginnings, all that.
Totally. So they're cleaning up, getting rid of all the junk the old owners left. You know how it is, right?
Oh, absolutely. You always find those random things like old photo albums or even clothes sometimes. It's kind of sad, but kind of cool too,
Yeah, for sure. But in this case, they find a deep freezer just kind of abandoned in the basement.
Okay, that's a little strange, but I mean, it happens. Those things are heavy.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, they decide to give it away for free. Can you imagine finding that online ad? Free freezer. Come and get it.
Oh man, knowing what we know now, it's almost like something out of a horror movie.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because what they found inside was definitely not leftover pizza.
Wait, it gets worse. I thought they were just getting rid of it because it was, old.
Oh, it gets way worse. They opened it up, and there was this black bag. And inside the bag, a human head and forearms, still attached to the hands.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah. And one of the neighbors actually talked about it on the news. Apparently they were helping clean out the freezer, and they thought it was just like old meat at first. It's a crazy reminder of how easily we can be tricked by appearances.
And how quickly things can take a dark turn. I mean, who expects to find something like that? Seriously. But this wasn't just some random freezer full of mystery meat. This was a freezer holding a secret, a life that was cut way too short, and a mystery that was only just beginning to unfold. So that discovery, it was just the tip of the iceberg, right? Now investigators had this whole other mystery on their hands. Like, who was this woman? And how did she end up in there?
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but most of the pieces are missing. And the ones you do have, they're all faded and worn,
Yeah, it's like trying to put together a story from just a few scattered pages. But anyway, the DNA analysis, that gave them their first real lead.
And what did they find?
The remains were identified as Amanda Leariel Overstreet.
Amanda Overstreet. And that's when things really took a turn, didn't they?
They did, because Amanda, she was just 16 years old at the time of her, presumed death. Just 16. It's hard to even wrap your head around,
Yeah, and it makes you think about all the things she never got to experience, graduating high school, falling in love, all of it.
Yeah.
Just gone. I know, it's heartbreaking. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Amanda was last seen way back in April of 2005. Nobody reported her missing or anything. She just kind of dropped off the radar.
Wait, so for almost 20 years, nobody knew where she was? That's unbelievable.
I know, it's almost unheard of, right? Makes you wonder what was going on back then. Did anyone even notice she was gone?
That's what gets me, was she trying to run away from something? Did something terrible happen to her? Did anybody even look?
It's just a huge mess of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
And it gets even more tangled when you consider, where they found her.
In her childhood home.
Exactly. Not just a house,
Yeah.
but the house she grew up in.
It's almost like, I don't know, the house was holding on to her or something, keeping its secrets.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? Like something out of a nightmare. But that's where we're at, Amanda Overstreet vanished without a trace. And for almost 20 years, nobody knew what happened to her. Until now.
Yeah.
So, like, where do we even go from here? I mean, you've got this missing teenager or child at home, like, holding onto this horrible secret. It's almost too much to think about.
It's a lot to process, that's for sure. And sadly, these cases, they're not as easy to solve as they make it seem on TV.
Right. Like, I feel like we're always seeing those crime shows where they just, like, dust for fingerprints and boom, case closed. But it's got to be a lot more complicated than that in real life.
It definitely is, especially in a case like this. I mean, think about it. We're talking about something that happened almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, like how do you even begin to investigate something like that after all this time?
Yeah.
Wouldn't most of the evidence be, like, long gone?
A lot of it, probably. Physical evidence can degrade, witnesses might move or pass away, memories fade. It's a real uphill battle. But the authorities, they're treating this as a homicide.
Yeah.
And that's usually the first step, right? Establishing what happened and then figuring out who was responsible.
Makes sense. But like you were saying, finding that proof after all these years, it's a long shot.
It is. But that's where things like, public awareness come in. Sometimes someone out there, they might have a piece of information, something they think is insignificant, that could crack the case wide open. It happens more than you think.
It's like that saying, right? The truth is out there.
Exactly. And sometimes all it takes is that one person to come forward and say, hey, wait a minute, I remember something.
Like that neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Even just remembering that Amanda was like a normal teenager, that's still something for investigators to go on.
Absolutely. Every little detail can help paint a picture of what Amanda's life was like back then, who she was with, where she went. It's about connecting the dots.
Yeah, and hopefully those dots lead to some answers. Not just for us, but for Amanda and everyone who knew her. It's tragic, For years, her story was literally frozen in time. But now it's like we're finally listening, and hopefully, finally, someone will be held accountable.
And hopefully, by telling Amanda's story, by reminding people that even in the quietest corners of the world, these things can happen, maybe we can encourage everyone to be a little more observant, a little more willing to speak up if something seems off. Because you never know, that one small action, it could save a life.
It's a chilling thought, but an important one. If you or anyone you know has any information about Amanda Leariel Overstreet, please reach out to the authorities. No detail is too small, and every bit of information could be the key to solving this mystery and bringing closure to Amanda's family and loved ones, because everyone deserves justice, no matter how long it takes.